Hi Aquarius, welcome to your Aries season reading, Eclipse season reading, April 2024 reading. All information to work with me one-on-one is below, as well as the extended version to this reading, which will be in the first link below. I'll give it about 24 to 48 hours after this reading comes out to check it out, that extended version. Also, check out a future podcast / meditation this month. I'm just going to try to put it everywhere, but it will be definitely on the podcast link, Venusian current. So if you've been wondering or perhaps overthinking, it's time to let some things out. Maybe you've had to, or maybe you've gotten sick. Maybe something happened that caused you to, that may have brought up pain, perhaps, or just you in your head too much. And what you're learning now more than ever is that letting it out, this is definitely an air sign thing that Gemini has learned. Libra is also learning, and you're learning, is that you don't always need to conceptualize everything in your mind first before allowing things to come out. It doesn't always have to look perfect, right? You can start somewhere, and for the people that love you and are in this with you, they're here for it. If this has to do with a job, my cat is playing and it's so sweet. If this has to do with a job, then you are speaking up for yourself right now, and I think it's really important to, before things could get maybe worse with the situation. It could be a group of mean girls, mean people, because it doesn't have to just be girls, of course. I'm just looking at this and using language. So it could be a group of people, but however, there's also a part of you that's speaking to what you want in your future, and it's caused for celebration because it's you taking your power back in ways, even if it doesn't feel like you're there, because we have the Page of Pentacles, the 10 of Cups, and the 3 of Cups. Right, so it's small wins on the long-term game. Right, there's small battles with the war, if you want to put it into a negative connotation or an intense connotation, but it's the same thing, like in your journey. And you're learning that the more that you speak out loud, even if it's to yourself or to like someone that you are even paying to listen to you, or you're starting to do more creative avenues with your voice, it's going to help alleviate some things. I don't think we give a lot of credit to doing these things to help cure ailments in our lives. And I think it's not the only thing that cures, but it could help. It's helped certain chronic ones of mine, so I'm speaking from a place of personal knowing. But I do feel like for a lot of you, this is going to help ease a lot of tension that maybe you've been having in your mind. This is also going to help on the helpful side of your ego to grow. It seems as though you really value this time in your life as a way of a stepping stone. You're seeing it that way, even. And for others of you, it's you not realizing that you do maybe want marriage, something traditional, even though you want to also have both. You're learning more about your values. And if you're already there, you're seeing that you don't even have the traditional, and that's okay. And maybe you're thinking about it, but the truth is that you're allowed to have and create your relationship in the way that you want. It's no longer this community, like this is what we do. It's now you in your life, still having the connections that you have, but the one with your person particularly is is where you may need to share and express more at this time with the people that you love, with the people that mean something to you, with the people who see you in that way, because it may help again, it may help dissipate also some of confusion that you've had, because you'll see the reactions in real time. You'll get the responses that you are looking for. Why is this such a priority? Well, interestingly enough, I wasn't thinking about this until, we're like now, where I thought about it like previously to this, but then it's like, oh, here it comes up in the video, is that your eclipses in Aries, if your chart is set up, or if you do whole sign, is in the 11th house. Sorry, I'm like, in the 11th house. So it is groups, communities, different people. And it's possible that you now can be even more open to dreams, aspirations, from 3 of Cups to 7 of Cups. This makes you feel capable of having maybe new dreams, or Mercury retrograde, developing on one of the many ideas that you have had. All of a sudden, things kind of come back to you throughout the course of the month. And you have the energy. You have the energy to utilize. You have the power. You're giving yourself the power. It's funny that sometimes, like when you speak up for yourself, you're actually taking your power back. When it's not out of defensive, when it's coming from a place of healing and necessary for your overall well-being, you feel it in your body or in some way. I notice, I'll put it in my terms, I notice that whenever I do that, something of that sort for myself, I gain something. And most of the time it's energy. So that's what we're saying here. You may feel more confident than you appear. You may run into what has blocked you from this pursuit before. And I would be very careful who you start to share your creations with. For some of you, also may be feeling romantic under these moons, interestingly enough, or in the mood for some art and romance. You are able to see, as the moon casts its shadow in the darkness, you're able to see very clearly without judgment. And maybe you've been setting yourself up for this, right? You're doing things to combat anything that you may feel like you judge yourself for, whether it's not doing something or what's holding you back, or even in what you're creating. If you find that there's judgment or feelings like that dominate the creative process, through the creative process, I do believe that's where we find our freedom a lot of times, especially like our internal freedom. That's why I feel like artists are so able to be on whatever spectrum, and when people are judging them, I do feel like they don't understand that, yeah, it could derive from someone else, but if it's something so drastically different that maybe you've never seen before, then you're experiencing someone's extension. And yes, you can judge it. They're exposing it to you, right? You're exposing yourself in these ways. Here we go. The connection is coming. You're exposing yourself in these ways that can create negativity drawn to you. But the more that you recognize that there's freedom in this and that you can protect yourself in those ways for sure, you see that you actually have a lot more to give. And that actually it's time to utilize what you've accumulated so far, especially through what you value and how you value life. That the way you combat any negative feedback or even criticism, and it's not that you can't take it, That's not what we're talking about. But if it has to do with something that's very personal and people feel like they can just have certain opinions, it's possible that that's where you're creating this moment of like, I acknowledge this out loud. Therefore, I am not the same person. So if you or anyone else is an issue, or if someone says something, you know, you're going to hear from me, or you're going to receive a different response. Like, you feel the growth in yourself. And now you're experiencing it in a very personal way in your relationships, your relationship with your creation, your relationship in, like, literally, like your most personal relationship in your life, whether it's with yourself or if you're partnered or if you're dating. And the relationship with, like, friends and people whom you celebrate with, who you gather with, who you maybe have ideas with. Some of you will also be collaborating this month. You may find yourself wanting to. And why does that come up next? Well, because you need to know and to be able to create and state what you need when you're in collaboration. Like, hey, not feeling my best today. I'm showing up in the best way that I can. Don't take it personal. And maybe it'll change. I'm not attached to it, but I'm just letting you know this is where I stand right now. One example. Another example. You decide to share prematurely something that you didn't think that you were going to get feedback for. You're just sharing something because you feel so inclined to share, but you forget that people have their days. We all forget people have their days too, and things don't always transpire. So you may find yourself in these situations where, one, you have to stand up for yourself and like acknowledge people for where they're at and be like, oh, I can show you this another time. And also at the same time, trying not to take this too personally. You know, this is also your experience in this life. And I think towards the end of the month, which is interesting, that's where a lot gets hectic. But for you, it seems as though you're able to gain and take your power back over the planets, over what's happening right now. Pluto is in your sign, so you're going through a greater transformation. And it just so happens that it's amplifying, the eclipses may be amplifying these parts of your life right now as well. For a lot of you, it's also about how and who you're growing into at this time, and how, if you have, again, this Seven of Pentacles, Seven of Cups, the Seven of Pentacles, you have these ideas, and all of a sudden towards the end of the month, things start maybe moving quickly because there's an unattachment that comes to you as a new beginner. That even if you know you're going to get somewhere, even if you can recognize that you see things that other people don't, or that you are even more capable or whatever it is, and that you know you're going to rise up and you feel it, things do move quickly, but you still have this ability to be youthfully curious. I think it's just this part of you that is necessary, and that you need to, interestingly, on the bottom of the deck, we'll get there, that you need to find yourself coming back to this month, because you may meet some unnecessary resistance. Right? If you're feeling defensive at all, Aquarius, or, you know, or you're getting into these, or you find yourself in places where you're feeling triggered, or maybe even extra closed off. Interestingly enough, the air sign, you're still an air sign, right? This general thing we have in common is that you'll want to do so much, even a sign who is good at the rest and restore physically anyway. You may find yourself running in your mind as you do. That's actually normal for you, but like also finding that your body is having maybe also that reaction. So if you find yourself there, I want you to do your best to notice yourself as a child. I work with children as well as my inner child. When you work with children, if you work with children who are unregulated, and it's very obvious when they went like the extremes of it. There's just a very there's a full spectrum of it all, from the most chill to the hyperactive. And those are the extremes that I look for. The ones that go through all the phases is normal. But when you're on one side of the spectrum, there's probably something off. So if you are finding yourself unable to sit still in your mind, or able to sit or relax to an extent, to a comfortable extent, I would challenge you to do so. If you've never tried yoga nidra, there's plenty of YouTube videos. You can record a script of yourself if you like your own voice, or if that helps soothe you, or ask someone to, depending on the state then you're in, ask someone that you love to maybe record a script for you. It shouldn't take too long. You can go anywhere from like 10 to 2 hours. I definitely recommend something where you're going to be able to get into your body. So if you need a little bit longer building up to it, it's just something I recommend. Anyway, seeing yourself as that child who can't sit still is because there's something going on. There might be a big feeling that you're experiencing, and we still have those. Bear with me. I know this is spoken about a lot, but I'm doing my best to see this the more I grow as an adult, to, not give people excuses for acting from this place, but not to give myself an excuse to not address these things. So I'm not giving other people excuses by looking at it this way. It's simply for the benefit of how to handle this for my best self, for what I need. So I don't give myself excuses in these moments, to be able to be like, oh, but it's not so I'm like, don't give yourself excuses. It's just more of like, oh, this just happens sometimes. Like, this is just what it is. So any pressure that you've been putting on yourself too throughout the course of this month, the planet's already doing enough. So if you can say to yourself, release any pressure that's not coming from the planets, release, have this communication, like as if maybe this becomes you, the ether, the universe, spirit becomes this most intimate connection with you during this 20-year period. I'm going to emphasize it a lot this year because I think you guys need to be reminded of it, because bottom of the deck, look at this shit. So what that exposes to you is that you can confidently, without question, move into a time and move right into abundance. Maybe that's the biggest shift happening for you. And it's like preparing you for good times, preparing you for how other people are going to react to your good times. Because one thing I just heard this morning, I'm like, why wasn't I listening to this? Was because, and I just like turned it off. And then I remember that one of the last things I heard is that when you're doing well, some of the people in your life who are supposed to be supportive of you, or who you think, especially like family, even though most of us don't have that anyway, but if you do, you're blessed. Of course, even if you can see beyond it, like they're, jealousy, but they're still like trying to be happy for you. It's nice. But because what happens is that, unfortunately, even if people really want to be happy for us, they may not be. They may be internalizing their own experience, of course, going through something. So I just want to put that out there first. And you're like, why is this important? Well, we're in the month of like I and self, and you're here wanting to celebrate. Not everybody's going to be able to celebrate your wins. And I think Aries knows that best, because they just always like run into some good shit. There's always like a moment, even if like they even like, and just like Libras, like they'll even glorify like the dumb shit in their life. They'll be like, I got arrested, and make it like the most dramatic story and amazing story. And you're kind of like, is this good? Like, I kind of want to, but then you're like, what? Like what for? And then you hear that part. It's like, oh, so, and like, no shade. It's just kind of, I think you can relate to that too. Some of you, or Aquariuses that you may know, or if you're watching for an Aquarius. I get it. So it's this feeling of this responsibility for the more. and what that means for you being okay with whatever reactions that you get. And it's not that, well, that is people-pleasing codependency, but it's also just you being sensitive, right? That may be why you don't share certain things with people. You notice that, or maybe you do just to challenge it, right? Maybe and some of you are in this time where you're like, I'm just feeling confident, like I'm just riding this wave. All of a sudden I start feeling better. I'm able to, at least right now, see things as like, okay, this thing within me in this situation isn't trying to attack me, it's trying to show me something. And if I can shift my focus to that, just for now, even when it's hard, really, really hard, I feel more joy because I'm giving that part of myself attention that it maybe didn't get before or didn't get, and it will, could trace back to like when in your life this pattern all started. So that's another thing, is that we're going through, these patterns, of course, and how they relate to our egos and how we play our egos out, how they relate to how in which we play out our relationships with those egos, without those, all of it. And yeah, so get it out of your head. This is an external month, very normal month, I feel, for you. There is ups and downs, of course. There are ups and downs, of course, and we'll get right into it into the second part anyway. The theme is confidence. Confidence. Confidence and confidence. Ooh, we like that. I'm going to write that down. All information is below. Next part is below. We'll see you there. Have a great month.